Tank, do you think that Minnesota could take advantage here in this spot against the Green Bay Packers? Because it seems like the easy thing to do is take the points with the Vikings, but the Packers played really well.
Honestly, like I wouldn't bet it, but I like the Packers.
Yeah.
I like the Packers. We've come a long way from the middle of the season where I was just talking that hot cash about the Green Bay Packers, and
Yeah.
honestly, everything that I said was valid because they were playing shitty ball, and I don't know why Vegas was just hung up on Aaron Rodgers being the MVP and all that, and so it took a while for them to correct, but then they finally did. But now the Green Bay Packers have actually corrected some things within their scheme on offense and defense, and now they're playing solid ball. As we talked about, the defense is playing better. I wish the offense was at full strength. We'll see where Christian Watson is once his kickoff. I know he's dealing with a hip injury and that he hasn't been ruled out for this game. We'll see how his practice reps are throughout this week. I would like for him to be in this matchup just to add that explosive take off the top of the defense because I mean when you're talking about the Minnesota Vikings defense, I mean they're just known for giving up explosive pass plays on
Mm-hmm.
defense, and so I would like to have that element in Aaron Rodgers' arsenal. The weather's not going to be too bad. I was looking last night. I think the weather's going to probably be in like the 30s or something like that, which is fine, and so it's not
Balmy
going
in
to be that
Lambeau.
windy. Yeah, so I would imagine both teams should be able to move the ball effectively. I really like this total when it was at like when I first took my notes, it was 46 and a half, and I was over all day. I mean, now it's at 48 and a half. Probably still like the over, but like whenever I see a line move like that, I'm like, I don't want to get caught chasing, but I really liked it at 46 and a half. Who wins this game? Like I said, I mean, I wouldn't bet it. I think Green Bay does. I like the over at 46 and a half. I think I'll let Jared get into his data dump, but that's just kind of where I stand right now. I think this is going to be a really good game, and I think everybody's just been waiting for the wheels to fall off on the Vikings. I'm not sure if it's going to be a nasty game like Dallas just blowing them out. I think this is competitive because it's a divisional matchup, but I think Green Bay wins.
I feel like everyone's kind of been waiting for the wheels to fall off the Vikings, and they just keep winning those one-score games, which is wild. And Jared, statistically, what are the chances of that actually happening in a season?
It's a lot. It's long, right? I mean, it's like flipping a coin 10 times and having it come the same tails or heads or tails all 10 times or 11 times.
11 times.
Yeah, it's not probable. Let's just leave it at that. I'm not that smart where I can do that math in my head. But I do think it's probably one of the more outlier seasons in NFL history. I mean, here you go. Here's some data for you. The Vikings are 12-3, but they're just a +5 point differential. And they rank outside of the top 19 in every analytical category. Total DVOA, offensive DVOA, defensive DVOA. For perspective, and this was a tweet I believe one of the analytical guys for Pro Football Focus sent out earlier this week. Their offense is less efficient than the Steelers, Bucks, Raiders, and Giants. And when I name those four offenses, they don't really strike fear into your heart, right? Their defense is less efficient than the Texans, Titans, and Dolphins. And again, maybe one playoff team in that entire bunch that I just named you.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not playing like a playoff team. And they're definitely not playing like a team that has a chance to be the number 2 seed in their respective conference.
Crazy.
It is mind-boggling how they have strung together these wins, but they have strung together these wins. So you have to at least give them some credit for their, I guess, just the ability to overcome adversity and win these games. The Packers are starting to play really well. The nerd numbers are starting to show me that they're an efficient offense. Since week 14, 10th in EPA per play on offense, and their defense is 8th in efficiency with a success rate allowed of under 40%. So I don't really have any, even earlier in the year when Rodgers was struggling and he, the thumb was a little banged up and the receivers looked young, and I still said, all of those things are working against them. Let's see what happens later in the year. It was always the defense that I thought was holding them back the most. Well, now their defense over the last 3 weeks during this little winning streak playing better than their offense. And I give Joe Barry a ton of credit. made the adjustments at half. Tua and the Dolphins, 0 points in the second half of that game on Sunday. That's
Crazy.
impressive. And
which
Joe
may have
Barry's
been
not
due
a
to the
guy that
concussion too.
could have been 100%, absolutely. But it also could have just been some adjustments. I don't know how, I don't know how much the concussion affected Tua in the second half of that game, but that is a very, very valid point. Christian Watson being day-to-day is the one injury to keep an eye on this week. Did not practice Wednesday. We'll see what he does later in the week. Obviously, a massive, massive piece. He's playing right now like a top 10 receiver. He's really starting to show flashes of why the Packers invested in him during the draft. And the one thing I really like about Green Bay, even without David Bakhtiari, their offensive line is playing like a top 5 unit. And they're going to need it because Zadarius Smith and this Vikings defensive line is the one strength of their defense. They're really bad in the secondary, but up front, they can get after you a little bit, and they're decent against the run. So that's the matchup to keep an eye on here. The Packers offensive line against that Vikings front, which has some pieces that can scare you. And if Aaron Rodgers keeps playing as well as he's played over the last month, I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that Green Bay wins this game, and I feel pretty confident about them making the playoffs, which, by the way, you can still bet that at around plus 186-ish, around 2-1. So that I haven't done the math about what's the better bet to make, bet them this week and then roll it over on the money line or bet the playoff bet. I'll do that math later this week, but I think the Packers to make the playoffs is a decent bet right now too.